Good morning and welcome to Manage Your Critic, the community committed to non-judgmental listening. I'm Cheryl Andrews, I'm the founder of Step by Step Listening, and today we're talking about where does motivation come from. One of the things that I do on the 3-day program called Motivate, Manage or Mentor is really look at how we respond to feedback, on what feedback we're giving to ourselves, and it's where all the work around Manage Your Critic came in for me, because it was my sensitivity to criticism that meant that I would get clarity of what I wanted, and then I'd be easily swayed. I'd start moving away from those choices based on the feedback or responses I was getting outside. And that was happening for lots of reasons. And today in the video, I want to talk to you about that, but in context to those of you know that last year I had some charity challenges that I set myself, some big ones. One of them was 100 hours of silence. And I also did set myself a goal to do the London to Paris bike ride. And I said I'd commit to lose 50 pounds before my 50th birthday. And I didn't achieve all of that. I didn't do all of it. But what I do believe is that when you have clarity of what you want, good morning, Charlie, when you have clarity of what you want, and you have the support around you, and you have confidence about what works with you, often the reason why it doesn't happen is the timing. And what I want to know is last year, it felt like the right thing to do. But Mark's heart attack did throw me. It meant we changed the way that we eat. So everything that I got into in a program and what worked for me in terms of diet, and I don't mean diet as in like being on a diet, but as in the way that we prepared our meals, the kind of menus that we had, all changed like quickly overnight. We had a week away in April to stay with Susie and Martin, and they're vegan, and we ate differently and we felt different. And so Mark really wanted to go meat free. And so I'm the one that does all the cooking. I'm the one that does all the prepping. And I was still dealing with all that emotion, that upset of the fear that I might have lost him. And by the way, everybody, if you don't know, he is fine. And I then had to change the way. I couldn't just run on autopilot. I couldn't do what I've always done. I had to update my system. I had to change the way that I was cooking. And for a little while, when we went out and we were trying to buy food, the only thing we could find that was like meat free was cheese and onion pasty. So it wasn't good for him cholesterol wise. It definitely wasn't good from a weight loss point of view, and it took some adjustment. In terms of the London to Paris bike ride, I had committed to that because I really wanted to go to Paris with Mark. I wanted to train more at the weekend with him because he always cycled, and I wanted to be enjoying the time with him instead of being at home while he cycled. I wanted to be able to keep up with him. And after his heart attack, he couldn't cycle. So going out of the weekends on my own training, that's not what my life was about. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So it didn't matter how much I wanted to raise money for the charity, that in the sort of short-term part of it, for the timing, what was more important was that I came back to my home family and my own commitments and my own responsibilities. And actually what Mark asked me to do was to grieve the loss of his fitness. So we started to do more moderate exercise, more gentle exercise that he was able to do to build his fitness back up. Now, the good thing is that recently he's had the bill of health and he's back to training. And so the last thing, the third thing, so you have to have clarity of what you want. The timing has to be right. And the last thing is about changing the way that you respond to feedback, because sometimes we get feedback from people who do not know us very well, who make assumptions, and they say things to us that then can really, really take us off track. They can stop us from believing in ourselves, stop us from having confidence in our initial decision, the initial commitment that we had. And I've definitely seen that with Mark. He was feeling better. He could see that his heart rate was going up and he wasn't getting chest pains. But we invested in a stress test a few weeks ago, and after having the consultant tell him he is now free to go back to 180-mile bike rides. In fact, actually the endurance rides would be better for him than the really short sprints, steep hill ones. He has just changed. Having that feedback externally from an expert saying you can do that has just lifted this massive weight off of him, and he's really enjoying fitness again. He's finding he's getting back into the training. Some of his medication has changed, so we know that's going to change his oxygen. So the reason I'm telling you that story is because when we make a decision to do something, whether you want to grow your business, whether you want to lose weight, get fit, whatever you set yourself as a goal, if it's a change that's required in your life, then you are going to, first of all, have to have real clarity of what you want and why you want it. If you don't really understand what the why that's driving it, then you will not make it a priority, and you will not find time for that to happen. So you have to have clarity. The second thing you have to have is time. So you have to, if you're going to change a behavior, but you're going to have to commit to practice a new way of being. And the last thing is, if things are going to need to change, if things are going to be different to doing the way that you did before, we'll need support. And it's getting the right peer support around you to make that happen. So Charlie, I know you're on live today, and somebody else has come on live. If you can say hello at the bottom, because I can't see who it is that's live. It would be great to know who's here listening. But Charlie, I just want you to know that if you've seen my Facebook post over the last few days, I've been in a bit of overwhelm. I've been feeling a little bit like, oh, and what I've realised is that this desire to lose 50 pounds before my 50th birthday and a desire to support Square Pegs, it's not going to go away. All right. Hello, Tina. Good morning, darling. So I have woken up yesterday morning. I had so much going on, I didn't have time to tell anybody. But I've woken up today, and I often remember this. For those of you who don't know, I used to be a Slim and Well consultant. I did that for 7 years. And I reached a point where, in fact, I met Sue Hodges at Square Pegs last week, and it never fails to happen. If I meet somebody from my Slim and Well days, people will say to me, Cheryl, there's never been a consultant like you. All right. So why was it that at 7 years I just felt awful and I just had to get out of that job? And it's because I was going through my divorce. I felt like my own self-esteem was going wrong. I was gaining weight. I felt a failure, and yet everybody else saw me as this awesome, great motivator. And that took me away from Slim and Well because something wasn't working in my head. I was getting up in front of the class going, I empathize, I'm just like you, I'm a chocoholic. But up until that point, in that moment, I hadn't thought about chocolate. I was fine. I could eat a chunk. It didn't bother me. I would then tell the story to the class that, I'm to give empathy, so they knew that they weren't on their own. I'd help tell them stories about things I've done that made them feel better because it wasn't just them. Because that's it can be so comforting to know it's not just us. And then what would happen is I would sow the seed that I'm a chocoholic, and I'd go home and eat chocolate. And so it got to the point where I didn't have a system in place where I could motivate and inspire other people and support myself. And my divorce meant my self-esteem was just not, and my business was going down. I wasn't making enough money, so I wasn't able to support my family. My line manager at the time, Louis Perryman, was amazing. I spoke to her about it, and I took the role of area manager because it gave me a salary, and that gave me the ability to provide for my family financially. However, 2 years later, during the same time, my mum passed away. So if you get the kind of picture, lots of things were changing all the time. But I was really struggling with motivating other people when I didn't feel motivated. And so I want to talk about, where does motivation come from? And it always comes from inside us. But what I've discovered over the years of actually helping and supporting other people, and they tend to be people who spend a lot of time supporting and helping other people, is motivation comes from clarity. You have to absolutely know what you want and why you want it. And one of the things that's been happening over the last year, in the middle of last year, I had a friend who was wanting to encourage me and wanted me not to give up on my cycling goals and didn't want me to give up on my fitness goals. And just some of the things that were said didn't sit well with me. They didn't help me. I was saying what I needed to hear in order to be motivated. I was telling them what I required, but they weren't hearing it. And it took me quite a while to undo that, because it meant I lost the friendship in order to find my own way back to my motivation. So 3 things that we need to get motivation is clarity. So if you haven't already done so, take some time today to write down what you want to have happen. The second thing is time. You have to plan it, you have to make time for it, and you have to think about the individual decisions that you'll need to make on a daily basis in order to make that happen. And it might be that you need to update your decision-making model. You have to think about. So one of the things I've been doing over the last 10 years since I left Slim World is I've been really curious about statements like comfort eating and relationship with food. And so for me, I've got clarity of what I want to have happen. I don't know all the science behind it, but there's a whole load of stuff that says that the brain doesn't like losing things. It's why we find decluttering difficult, letting go of things. I know I'm going through a bit of an emotional thing now where I'm doing the GTPR on my mailing list. So I've gone from 500 to only 11 people signed up. And I'm having to learn to go, okay, the right 11 people will be there. That's who will be signed up. That'll be fine. So the brain doesn't particularly like letting go of stuff. So one of the things that I discovered when I started to be curious about this 10 years ago is started to look at the language I was using to describe food. And so what I've discovered for me personally is my association with food was it was a reward. And so I gradually over time changed it. So instead of rewarding myself with chocolate, I would reward myself with something that maybe is more expensive in the food range, but it's healthy and it's good for me. Instead of rewarding myself with resting and laying down, I think I'd reward myself with a yoga class or a walk around the block or whatever the reward system was. But it's about language. So if those of you don't know the clarity process, you have to ask yourself questions. So I'd love to know, what are your goals? What are you wanting motivation for right now? So in answer to the question, what would you like to have happen? Please put them below in this Facebook group now, and I will happily come back to you with some questions so you can get clarity. Because what I'm going to do is pick out some words out of your statement, and we're going to ask you what kind of, is there anything else about that? And then we're going to look at where your attention is. Now, when you say I want to lose weight, the reality is it's not really the losing weight that I want. That's a remedy. That's the sort of medicine, if you like, that I want to get the thing that I want. So I really need to ask a question like, so when I lose weight, then what happens? And actually what I really want, in the terms of what I want rather than what I don't want. So I don't want the weight. What I want is to be stronger, elegant, and I've forgotten the last word. I've got 3 words written down. Lighter, that's the word. Stronger, elegant, and lighter. And so when I started yesterday to get clarity of what does stronger look like for me, stronger for me is I've got more toned arms, I've got strong legs, and I have a flat stomach or flatter stomach. But it's more about it feels firmer and it looks firmer. So I know the exercise I need to do in order for that to happen. And stronger is also about being okay to say to other people, whilst you're doing that, I'm not going to join in. Because one of my biggest things that I've discovered on this journey is I'd like to be included and I like to join in with people. And I don't like to be on the outside, so I don't like to be different. And so stronger is also about being okay, being different for me on my journey. Elegant was also about, the way I hold myself. It's the way I dress myself, the style. So actually the elegance is much more about me being curious about the clothes I wear, the type of fabrics I wear, how they float, how they make me feel. But it's also being more elegant about the portions of food that I have. It's actually, I want to be, in my map of the world, it's not judging anybody else, more elegant about the portions or even the speed that I eat my food. And lighter, I want to be lighter in terms of my language. I want to have more fun. I want to be more jolly. I don't want to be so heavy. Oh, I do apologise, my alarm's just gone off. I don't want to be criticising myself. So it's not just about the physical lighter, although that will be a measure in terms of a sponsored slim, which is what I'm going to commit to 100% today. I have 32 pounds left to lose, and I've got 30 weeks until my 51st birthday. So I set myself a goal to lose 50 pounds by the time I was 50. I'm rewording it slightly that I'm going to lose 50 pounds whilst I'm 50. And I feel like that switch has gone. And I've often talked to my clients in the Slim World business about that switch going on. And so the reason why I've got the switch there is I've now know that I have clarity that I want to be stronger, elegant, and lighter. And I'm going to continue to invest time being curious about that. And then the reflection part of the process is I'm going to give myself feedback daily of what works, what doesn't work, what needs to happen for it to work better. I'm going to start to pay attention to my own drama when I'm criticizing myself. So I'm going to make sure that if I give myself a hard time. So one of the things I wanted to get away from in the slimming industry was all about I've had a cake, I'm being naughty. I've done that. Actually, food, when you think about the relationship with food, it's just like friendships. It's about relationships, about people. There are some people that if you spend loads of time with, you'll feel amazing. So I know if I spend loads of time with fruit, vegetables, lots of water with ice and lemon in it and lime, I feel amazing. And there are certain foods, just like certain friends, that if I spend a lot of time with them, I feel quite tired. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to eat more of the stuff that energizes me. But I'm not going to exclude completely the other stuff. I'm just going to moderate how much I work with it. And it's about being elegant. It's being stronger. It's about being lighter with my portions, lighter with my words, the way I talk to myself. And so it's taken me a while to work this out, but I know that my process, I know what works for me is to put my attention on the foods that make me feel great, the foods that, checking in with my whole body. So if I eat sugary food, do you know what? I don't have clarity. My head goes all foggy. I don't think very well. And I can eat that stuff if I've just done a 50-mile bike ride, and I'm just going to chill out at the end of the day and don't have to do anything. But if I eat it during the day when I want to have energy, when I want to be focused, it really doesn't do much for me. So I'm going to be using the clarity process to check in with myself and find out what works by my process. And it's always remembering the you that I matter. And so I'm going to want and I'm going to need support. And so that's where, for me, motivation comes from, is you have clarity of what you want. You've got a plan, so you're making time for it, and you're going to have support for the things that need to change. And what I know I'm always motivated by is inspiring and helping other people. So the first thing I've done is committed to the Sponsor Slim with square pegs. I've had to go through a bit of work to undo any sort of feeling that I failed last year, or I let people down, or what do people think of me. And actually I've got rid of all that because I don't really care. And that sounds really horrible. If anybody is in the world judging me thinking I didn't do very well last year, then be curious about it for yourself. Where is that coming from for you? How does that serve you? How does that make you feel better about something by saying that I didn't do very well? Because that's fine. But I know now the time is right, and I'm going to focus. I'm still going to be doing some long cycle rides because I do like cycling. I am going to do more fitness. I am going to have a better relationship with food, because I know that I matter, and I've got to look after myself. I've got to take care of myself. But I also know that in order for things to change, I'm going to have to ask for support. So I'm going to have to talk to my family, which is interesting because one of the reasons I started training as a coach many years ago in 2006 was because my clients kept coming to me, and I was having conversations with them outside of the Slim and Well class around things like, my family won't change the way they eat, so I'm now having to cook 5 meals. So, well, if they're not going to change what they eat, then you have a choice as the leader of that household. You either manage your time more effectively so you can cook various meals, and that's what you choose to do, and you change the way that you communicate about it. Because actually, if you're moaning all the time about, oh, my family won't do this and I don't want to do that, your energy levels go down and you have no motivation to do the things you really want to do. So you have to make a decision. What do you actually want? And you do not have to cook separate meals for everybody. You can leave them to cook for themselves. It's your choice not to do that. And so if you're going to choose to continue to cook for them and you're going to cook, then the thing that's in your control is to choose not to moan about it, not to complain about it, not to criticize them in your head or yourself. So one of the things I spent a lot of time is actually, how do you communicate to other people your changes? How do you get them to buy into? How do you get them to support you? How do you get them to listen to you in a way that really works for you, to motivate you? And the only way I know how to do that is for you to have clarity of what you want in the first place, to know what works and have confidence in your process, and then change the way that you ask for help. Change the way that you guide other people to support you. And if you can't get it from your immediate family, from your immediate environment, that's when you invest in coaching. That's when you invest in peer coaching groups. So what I would say to you is that what I've decided is I'm going to ask you guys to sponsor me pound by pound, which will be paid in December when the final total comes up. So my starting weight was 14 stone 10 on just before my birthday, 2016. And so my goal is to be 50 pounds lighter than that before the 14th of December 2018. And so you can sponsor me. That's one way you can help me with that. So that would motivate me. And if you could tell me how much per pound you're happy to sponsor me, I can write a little chart up and I can see how much money I'm going to make for every pound that I lose. And then every pound I lose, I can see that I'm making a difference. And so I know that I can give Square Pegs a nice big lump sum in December if I know that you're committing to that. So if you're going to give me a penny a pound, or 10p a pound, or a pound, or £2 a pound, whatever you decide, if you could tell me that, either in an email or in a message, because what I know motivates me is to see the difference I'm going to make. It doesn't always motivate me to see the difference on the scales. So I know that what works for me is to actually work with motivating and inspiring other people. The other thing is that I work well when I'm in a group of people who want to hear how I'm doing it. If I can write down the decision I've made and the thought process that went through it, helps me clarify the decisions I'm making, and it helps me to be responsible for not getting into moany victim, staying in drama. It makes me responsible to actually work out how am I going to get back to focusing on stronger, elegant, and lighter? That's my goal. That's my outcome. So my invitation is I'm going to set up from June a mastermind group where we would get online for 2 hours on Zoom. And I would like you to pay me, or pay the charity to my charity page, a donation of a minimum of £25 a month, but you can pay more. So if you want to be part of that mastermind group, I'm going to do it for 3 months, June, July, and August. And everything that comes from the mastermind group, all of it will go to the charity. I want them to get the money that I didn't raise last year. I do believe in not giving up on my goals. And in answer to the question, anyone got any questions about motivation right now? Because it's very quiet. You're watching me but not saying very much. Because I answer the question, where does motivation come from? For me, it comes from clarity of what you want, and an alignment that thing that you want is good for the whole of your system. So one of the things I do at Do, Delegate or Ditch Mastermind is asking you to think about things like, what would your head like to have happen? What would your heart like to have happen? What would your gut like to happen? What would your soul like to, what would your body like to have happen? And often when I used to make decisions before, the decisions were coming from my head. So when I make these decisions, what I've noticed is that when I'm hungry, I make a decision from my body, my gut area, and it tends to be, I need food, I need, it's fuel. When I make a decision about food that's from my head, it's usually because I'm tired. So actually what I need is either a rest, or I need a change of activities. I need to go and do some physical exercise to energize myself. I need water. And so actually noticing for me where I'm making my decisions from has helped me stop and pause before I go and eat something that I know won't necessarily serve me in terms of energy, not necessarily about weight loss, but about energy. So for me, it always comes back to, does your decision, the initial thing that you've asked for, does it serve the whole of you, your whole system? Secondly, does it serve your internal system and your external system equally? So is me eating healthily, is me having a fitter, healthier body going to serve my family? Absolutely. I'll be a role model. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to expect them to do anything different, but I am going to share with them my journey, and I'm going to ask them for their help and support, and I'm going to be doing things differently. And I know that that is a big driver for me. I've got 2 children who, and I love them dearly, and they both followed me with the being overweight. And I know that I've given them that gift of learning how to eat in that way. And what I want to do before I die is to give them a different gift. So my clarity, the reason why my why is so strong, why I'm motivated, is I know it's not just good for me. I know it's good for my family. And when the why is then committed to something bigger than that, so the fact that I've tied it into the charity, and I know the difference that Charlie and Shaz and all the volunteers make at SquarePegs, I've listened to the stories of those members who've come in and have felt so isolated, and by sitting at a craft club or doing the sewing, stitch and bitch classes, they sit there, they're doing something with their hands, they're creating something, their self-esteem and self-worth is raised because they've actually made something in that time. But more importantly, they felt belonging, they felt accepted. They can have one-to-one talks, they can talk to people about stuff. So my weight loss now is tied into a community project. It's going to have a bigger difference. But if I then open out to a mastermind group and people worldwide who have been unhappy with the decisions that they're making, that they're not the person they really want to be, if I can get you guys involved and I can have a bigger difference, my why now is not just down to me. Now, for some people, the pressure that there's all these people depending on them can be the reason why it all crumbles and it doesn't work for them. And I wasn't a little bit of that last year but Charlie and that were all great with me. They were so fat. They said, you and your family and Mark your priority. And I did need to recall back to just sorting me and Mark out to start with. And now I can expand it back out. So your motivation will come from wherever it needs to come from. But what I do know is that when you make a decision that's going to be good for you and the world on a big level, that's quite a big commitment. And you need support, you need encouragement. We're human beings. We won't always get it right every single time. We have to be able to talk that through. We have to make a decision to get it better. So what I'd love to know from you guys this week, it's a bit of a long video, sorry, is what do you want to have happen? What would you like to have happen? What is your thing that you're looking for motivation from? Where does your motivation come from? I know that a lot of people in the slim world industry used to talk about waiting for the switch to go off, and it's like yesterday morning the switch went off. And for me, the final straw was I realised that I absolutely believe that I can do £1 a week weight loss. A steady weight loss of £1 a week is very doable, and I really believe in myself that I can do it. And I suddenly realised it was, I thought I was about 31, 32 pounds off of target, and it was 30 weeks to my birthday. And so I was like, actually, time, you know, this is the right time to do it, because if I don't do it this week, if I don't start right now, it will be more than £1 a week average that I have to do. And I'm not comfortable with that. That doesn't work for me. So I cannot put it off any longer. And that was the switch for me. The numbers added up, the things made sense, and I felt ready to do things. So please share below what it is you'd like to have happen. I look forward to hearing from you guys. And I will put you a link to the charity page for that starting now. But please, if you're going to sponsor me, you're going to encourage me, you're going to be part of my support network, if you want to be part of the mastermind group, you'll start in June, message me please with either how much you're going to sponsor me for, or if you want to be part of the mastermind group, because I know for this to really, really work this time, I'm going to be doing it for myself. I want to lose the weight and I want to be lighter. I want to be more elegant and stronger. That's not a problem. But what I'm really, really motivated with, and I always have been, is about making a bigger difference. And so your help will help me. Lots of love to you all. Bye.